looking today at Psalm 32, and in the Good News Bible, the title above this psalm is Confession and Forgiveness. So I'm going to just read a few verses of Psalm 32. Happy are those whose sins are forgiven, whose wrongs are pardoned. Happy is the man whom the Lord does not accuse of doing wrong, and who is free from all deceit. When I did not confess my sins, I was worn out from crying all day long. Day and night you punished me, Lord. My strength was completely drained, as moisture is dried up by the summer heat. We've had quite a dry spell the last few days, even I think probably weeks really, in Britain. And this spring has been quite dry, sunny, but very dry, and it's really affected the garden as well. And of course, in some climates, the summer heat lasts for months and months. So in Israel, of course, where the psalmist was based, the summer heat is something that lasts probably about 8 months, and particularly intense, of course, in the Middle East. So when he's talking about that sense of things being dried up, he's really imagining how all the moisture drains away. I was just thinking of the things which, are lacking moisture in our garden at the moment. And the psalmist is helping to point us to the way in which this sort of sense of God's mercy and grace just seems to evaporate, seems to be drawn out of us, and we lose that sense of God's grace in things, just as much as the garden loses moisture and things start to crack and dry up. And his solution to this, his response to this, is the need to deal with the inner stuff that's not been resolved with God. He talks about this amazing happiness that comes from knowing that wrongs are pardoned, knowing that that there's no accusation, there's nothing really that is a mark against him, finding forgiveness, finding grace. He's worn out from crying all day long, and when he didn't actually deal with stuff properly, but when he does, there's hope. His hope is renewed. He says, then I confess my sins to you. I did not conceal my wrongdoings. I decided to confess them to you, and you forgave all my sins. There's a tremendous release of God's promise of blessing. So we want to just pray today that whatever situation we have for ourselves, that we need to find God's forgiveness, God's strength, God's renewal, that fresh moisture to our lives. I pray that today we will experience God's forgiveness, God's grace. We'll find that as we confess and open up our hearts and allow him to go into the center of our being, then we'll be refreshed and renewed. My prayer is that be the case for me, for you, for all of us, everybody who watches this video, that we'll find that as we open up our hearts, confess issues to the Lord, allow him to come in, we'll feel renewed, refreshed, strengthened, reinvigorated, a fresh hope, a fresh freedom, a liberty that we haven't known before.